Hello, here I am again, Nadine Arlen in character, inviting you to meet the real Jannette Rankin, here circa 1917. Back in 1904, while visiting her 20-year-old brother Wellington at Harvard, 24-year-old Jannette was horrified by the undernourished and uncared-for children she saw living in the filth and the squalor of the Boston slums. She exclaimed, "It makes me furious. We think nursing, teaching, and social work is enough? No, something stronger is needed. At the top, a woman's voice." At which point Wellington teasingly chided her for sounding like a suffragette. That did it. Jannette took his remark to heart, became a suffragette, and started her journey into history. In February 1911, encouraged by Wellington, Jannette was ready to impress her first formal audience, all men, at the Montana State Legislature, urging them to give women the vote, which they did, but not for 3 more years, in 1914. Jannette shocked everyone 2 years later. She ran for the Congress of the United States, and on November 6, 1916, she won. Although her hometown newspaper, the Missoulian, wouldn't admit it for a whole week. The lady from Montana arrived in Washington, D.C., April Fool's Day, 1917, elegantly dressed, not wearing fur chaps nor packing a 6-shooter as the press had surmised. Monday, April 3rd, the crowds cheered wildly as Jannette stood on the balcony of the National Organization for Women Building, flanked by Carrie Chapman Catt, leader of the women's suffrage movement. They proceeded to the Capitol for the first session of the 65th Congress. As the first woman ever elected to a national representative body anywhere in the world, Jannette Rankin would take her seat in the United States House of Representatives. One woman, 436 men. Elected on a peace platform, and feeling she represented the first vote of womanhood on war, Jannette and 49 of her colleagues in the House voted against American entry into World War I, a vote that destroyed her prospects for re-election in 1918. Not re-elected, for the next 23 years she lobbied in Washington for health care reform, against war profiteers, and against military buildup. Jannette testified at the Naval Affairs Committee in 1939, pleading for retention of Section 6 of the Neutrality Act, emphasizing that arming merchant ships was a provocation for an enemy to fire on any American ship. In 1940, the people of Montana sent Jannette Rankin back to Congress, a second time on a peace platform. Convinced that principle matters more than the passion of the moment, she stood alone in 1941, voting against American entry into World War II. Always at peace with her conscience, she explained that controversial vote exactly a year later in her December 8, 1942 speech for the Congressional Record. And, again not re-elected, Jannette temporarily retired from politics and traveled the world for 24 years. Here is a candid shot of her on a camel at the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Specially drawn to India several times to study nonviolence, she spoke everywhere, teaching what she called the peace habit. This is an ordinary snapshot of this extraordinary lady in 1949, sitting in a car with Special Representative Gahor in Sawagwam, Nagpur, where Gandhi once lived. 19 years later, in 1968, 88-year-old Jannette, the one in the middle, wearing glasses, and 5,000 women, known as the Rankin Brigade, marched for peace in Washington, D.C., this time to end the war in Vietnam. Determined reporters briefly caught up to her.
Yeah, I'm simply asking one question, Miss Rankin. Why are you here? Would you talk into that, please?
Because I don't like war.
What do you hope to accomplish, Mrs. Rankin, by
to
this
arouse
march?
the women, to express their opinions.
What can the women do?
They can stop the war by not supporting it.
February 12, 1972. In recognition of her lifetime contributions to the advancement of women's rights, Jannette, age 92, was honored by the National Organization for Women with the first Susan B. Anthony Award. Jannette Rankin is honored forever with 2 bronze statues, both crafted by Terry Minmo. This one, a replica for the state capitol in Helena, Montana, and the other, the original created by the artist for Emancipation Hall in the Capitol Building in Washington, D.C. John F. Kennedy called Jannette Rankin a woman of courage. Coretta Scott King, widow of Martin Luther King Jr., said, "She is the endurance symbol of the aspirations of American women, the symbol of the aspirations for peace in all of us. Jannette Rankin is the champion of peace."